you guys? Welcome back to Lily Reads. In today's video, we are going to be doing my favorite thing that I love to do at the end of every single year, and that is talk about my 10 favorite books of the year. I did not read a lot of books that just blew my mind. I gotta run and tell everyone, but the books that I did read and loved, I truly loved and had a good time with them. And these are the 10 of them. These are in order, so 10 is like my least favorite of my favorite, and number 1 is my favorite book that I read this entire year. So without further ado, let's get on into it. My number 10 favorite book of the year goes to I Have Some Questions For You by Rebecca McKay. This book is a literary mystery, and in this book we are following a woman who is a successful podcaster and she is a successful film professor. She has been invited back to her boarding school that she went to in high school, and they want her to teach a class. Well, when she goes back to this boarding school, it opens up some old wounds. The old wounds are that her boarding school roommate was murdered by someone, and the guy who they said did it was this black guy who was the fitness instructor at this school. And our main character has always thought things about this were fishy. There is more to the story. There's more things that she knows about this story. So she gets one of the students in her class to kind of do a lookup on this case, to do a project about this case. She doesn't let it be known that she's more interested in this than she's letting on, but she doesn't want to be too close to the case because she knew this girl, because she knew the guy who went down for it, because she was at the school. She doesn't want to be too close and look over facts just because she wants to come to a certain conclusion. So she gets someone else to do it. And in this book, our main character is writing a letter to someone she believes is responsible for this death, and she is telling them that, hey, I know what you did, and I have some questions for you. This book is really, really brilliant. A book like this is why I am very particular about what I want to consider a literary mystery, because not only is this book a good mystery novel, a good whodunit, a good like detective almost type of story, sleuthing story, but this book also has commentary on a lot of things that go on in our life. It has commentary on just boarding schools in general. It has commentary on relationships between students and the people who they trust basically their life with. It has commentary on the prison system. It has commentary on the court system. It has so much commentary on all of those things. So it's not just trying to be pseudo-intellectual, and that's why it's a literary mystery. No, it actually has interesting things to say about so many of the things that go into murder and people being convicted of murder. I just thought this book was really, really well done. It was nice. It was long. I had such a good time with this book. And yes, 10 out of 10 stars. 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. My number 9 favorite book of the year goes to Ordinary Hazards by Anna Bruno. In this book, we are following a bar. The main character of this book basically is a bar. And there is this woman who is going to this bar for one night, and something is going to happen at this bar that is going to change the life of everyone inside the bar. So as we're following our woman through this bar, she is in contact with everyone who comes in. She's talking to them. She has opinions about them. And through her interactions with people at this bar, we are getting to know what has happened in our main character life that has led her to being at this bar alone on this random night. So you find out about her past, you find out about her marriage, you find out about her friends, her family, and it is just about a night at a bar. I don't want to say much because this is one of the few books I went into that I genuinely had no clue what this book was about. Like, you could have asked me a million times, Kenya, what is this book about, before I picked it up, and I wouldn't have known. I picked this up actually on a whim one day. I never heard anybody talk about it, but I saw it at the bookstore and was like, that sounds interesting, and it really, really was. I am very hit or miss on stories about grief, but this book had a story about grief, but it also had a story about community, the people in this bar, about small towns, about marriages, and how our past affects everything that we do in the future. And I thought this book was really, really brilliant. The thing I appreciated the most about this book is that this book was genuinely funny. Sometimes I think books mistake like cleverness for funny. Like, you know, the writer of the book is smart and they believe believe their smarts to be interchanged for being funny, and it's not. Just because you are able to make astute observations does not mean you're necessarily doing something that's funny. This book is genuinely funny. Through her observations of people at the bar and things going on around her, there were many times I literally laughed out loud. And there were also many times where I'm like, this is so smart. I thought this book was really, really smart, and I cannot believe that no one has read this book. No one has read this book. This book is brilliant, and I give it 5 out of 5 stars, and it's my 9th favorite book of the year. My number 8 favorite book of the year goes to Rachel Caine, Still House Lake. So we are back in a thriller mystery type of book. Was this my thriller mystery year? I don't know. But in this book, we are following a woman. She is driving home one day, and she sees that a bunch of cops are lying down her block. And she thinks the worst. She thinks someone in her home, she has 2 kids, and she has a husband. Something has happened to them. Something has happened to them, and all things are bad. So as she quickly approaches, she realizes that this has to be more than just a little accident that happens to somebody. These cops are really out there. And she quickly sees that someone has driven into her garage. Someone has driven into the garage, and she's like, what's going on? She gets out of her car, and the police immediately say, put your hands behind your back, girl. You ain't going nowhere. She finds out that her husband has dead bodies in the garage. She had no clue this was going on, but her husband is a serial killer. Her husband gets shipped off to jail, and she basically starts a new life on Still House Lake. Well, quickly she realizes that things from her past are coming back to get her, and she thought she could put her husband away and everything that happened to her away, but they have come back, and she's trying to figure out why that is. This book is so good. This book, I made a whole vlog for it. This book is one of those mysteries where, like, you actually want to solve it. You actually want to know what is going on. You're led down different paths. There's so many different characters, and what I appreciated the most about this book is that there was a base story that was actually really interesting, following this mom, this son, and this daughter trying to get their life back after their father was a serial killer or their husband was a serial killer. That was interesting. Her trying to find love, them trying to see what this house is doing, what's going on with that. That was actually a really good story. But underneath, there's things going on. There's mystery. There's murder. Why is all this stuff happening? Is the husband really in jail? What's going on? It was also good and perfectly together. This is a part of a series, and I actually plan on reading the second book in this series this week. Rachel Caine is no longer alive, unfortunately, but her book is brilliant. I love this book. 5 out of 5 stars. My number 7 favorite book of the year goes to The White Coat Diaries by Maddie Sanaa. In this book, we are following an Indian woman, and she is starting her surgical residency. She wants to live up to her father. Her father was a doctor. He died, and she wants to be the perfect daughter, and she wants to become a doctor. But quickly, things are not as they seem. She needs to help her brother take care of their mother because their mother is not doing well, but she doesn't have time. There's sleep deprivation. The patients don't like her. The other residents don't like her very much either, and she's going through a lot. But one day, she meets the chief resident, and his name is Ethan. And she's like, this guy is great. At first, he is her mentor, but things quickly turn romantic. Well, one day, something happens and a patient dies. A patient dies, and they're pretty much the reason why that is. And she is faced with a dilemma on if she should be honest or if she should lie. And that pretty much sums up this entire book. This book was so good. Every single year, I feel like in my favorites list, there is a book that's a little whimsy and a little wacky, and I totally get why people wouldn't like it, but I really enjoyed it. That's this book this year. I picked up this book because I had a reading challenge where I had to read books on my bookshelf that have been there too long, and this was one of the books that I was put in the reading challenge. And so it got to page 120, and I'm like, wait, I'm kind of enjoying this book, and rarely do I read a book that's kind of just general women's fiction where I'm like kind of taken for a loop, like I'm a little bit gagged. This book kind of gagged me a little bit, and I was just like, whoa, I wasn't expecting any of that. This was one of the best reading experiences I had all year. I ate this book up in like a day and a half. I enjoyed it so much, and if you're one of those people who like books that are a little chaotic, that are a little unhinged, The White Coat Diaries is for you. I ended up picking up another book by this author that I can't wait to read next year. I enjoyed this book. My number 7 favorite book of the year. My number 6 favorite book is The Woman in the Library by Solari Gentile. In this book, we are following a woman who is writing a book. And the book that she is writing is about a murder that takes place in a library. There are 4 people in a library. All of a sudden, somebody screams and then somebody is murdered. And quickly, we learn that somebody in this room did the murder and we need to figure out who did it. So you are just following this woman basically writing a murder mystery novel. But there's a story also on top of that where she is sending this murder mystery novel to someone so they can fact check if everything makes sense, is everything on the up and up, and what things she should change. So there's a conversation between our writer and this person who is fact checking. And there's also this story that's happening in this novel where she is writing about this murder that happened in a library. And that's pretty much all I'm comfortable saying. It's not a very long book. This book was so much fun. This is another book where like I got halfway through and said, I'm having the time of my life. This type of book is just for me. It's able to do wacky and whimsy, but not get too unserious. I would describe this book as like 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson, where it's a little on the nose, it's a little wacky, it's a little strange, even meta, but I just think that it comes together in just this perfect story that keeps you on your toes. I enjoyed this book. I think more people should read this book. I cannot understand people who don't like this book. I think they're taking themselves too seriously because this book was really a fun time and it was 100% one of my favorite reading experiences and one of my favorite books of the year. My number 5 favorite book of the year goes to Love Times Infinity by Layton Clark. In this book, we are following a girl in high school who is about to go into her senior year, and she is one of the students that is able to go to this fancy, rich school because of scholarship. And she wants to go off to Brown, but she is worried that she won't get accepted into Brown because she doesn't have money. She doesn't come from the same privilege that everybody around her comes from. Well, one day Brown is making a visit to the school and she's going back and forth on if she should talk to the school and see does she have a chance to go to the school and should she apply to the school. But our main character is also dealing with some personal issues. She is a product of her mother being sexually assaulted. Her mother was sexually assaulted and ended up getting pregnant with her. And so she goes to a support group for kids who are also in the exact situation. And this just makes her feel very low on herself because she lives with her grandma and her mom is not in her life and she just thinks that she's really like worthless because if her father could be so horrible, does that mean she's horrible? Well, one day there's a new guy that moved to the school. He is star of the basketball team and they hit it off, and this book is about their romance and them all, figuring out what's next for them in life. Basically, this book is just about a bunch of black kids having a lot of fun in school and, learning to love themselves. I enjoyed everything about this book. I did not read a lot of romance this year because that is just not the era I am in. But when it comes to young adult books, many people ask why I enjoy them so much, and it's black young adult that I read. And it is because growing up, books like this did not exist for me. When I was in this age range, you could not really find black young adult books like this. So pardon me, but I'm going to read as many of them as I can because I know how important it is for these types of books to exist, and I just wish these books existed back when I was a kid. But I just found this book so cute, this book so heartwarming, and this book also has a really good message about it doesn't matter where you start, it matters how you finish, and you can make the most of a bad situation. So it has all the things you want a young adult book to have when it comes to a book that is trying to entertain, young adults and trying to teach them to keep going. But it's also so cute. I was literally turning the page this is so cute. This is so cute. It has all those young adult moments that you want in a young adult romance book where you just are reminded what it felt like to be in high school and have a crush on somebody. I enjoyed this book so much, and it is my number 5 favorite book of the year. My number 4 book might be a little shocking to you guys, but it genuinely is my number 4 favorite book of the year, and it is Radio Silence by Alice Osman. So in this book, we are following a podcast / online show called Universe City. And in this world, there is this guy who comes on. They don't know if he's in outer space. They don't know where he is, but he just talks, and everyone just kind of assumes what is going on in this this thing. But the really interesting thing about this podcast show, no one knows who makes it. No one knows who makes it. No one knows why they're making it. No one knows the point of this. But everybody loves it. It has so many fans. And our main character is a fan of the show. So much of a fan that she makes fan art for the show. And she posts this fan art online on Tumblr. And one day she is invited by the creator of the show to make fan art for the show. Now we as the reader know who makes this Universe City show because he is also a main character and he is dealing with his own issues and he is making this show for his own reasons. So we get our two main characters coming together and doing things for this show with one of them not knowing that the other is the person who makes the show. This book made me cry. I was not expecting the emotions that came along with this book. Every now and then there is a book that takes place in the past. So this book I think takes place in 2011, 2012. And it just perfectly captures what I felt like in this time. I am a big person of the internet. I've always loved the internet. And I was on Tumblr. I remember this era of internet. And so these people being in high school at this time, I was in high school at this time, it made me really emotional. And this author did such a good job at putting the words on the page that elicit emotion. Like you knew what every character was feeling. It felt like the weight of the world was on these characters' shoulders. Even though it's a young adult book, it ain't that serious, but like it felt serious. And that's what I love when a young adult book is good. It takes you back to what it felt like to be in that time. It like where everything meant everything. And it really felt like the world was going to be over. Everyone should read this book. If I was making the New York Times list of the 100 best books of the century or whatever that list was that came out, this would be on it. I think everyone should get their hands on the book. This book is so emotional and will hit you in a way I do not think most people will be prepared for it to hit you. It just, there's something nostalgic about it, melancholy, but also this sense of hope, this sense of community. And I think because I'm on the other side of this, so this book already takes place in the past, but then this book came out also in the past because I'm reading it like 5-7 years later. And so you have that, and I'm now so far away from the age of these characters. And there's something about the hope that they feel at the end of this book that I know may not be there, that also makes this really emotional. I'm not explaining it well, I never am, but this is my number 4 favorite book of the year, and I really, really enjoyed this book. Will always have a place in my heart because it just did something to me. I don't know. The next book we are going to discuss is my 3rd favorite book of the year, and that is Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. In this book, we are following a girl who was born with HIV. She is HIV positive. She got moved from her last school because everyone found out that she had HIV and made a big deal about it. But now she is at her new school, and there is a boy in her theater class that she really thinks is cute, and she's like, I should shoot my shot. Well, she shoots her shot with this guy, and it lands, baby, because this guy likes her just as much. But one day she is at her locker, and someone leaves a note in her locker, or was her mailbox. Auntie getting confused. And basically, they're like, I'm going to tell everyone you have HIV if you don't stop hanging out with this boy. And she's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Is it all that? Is it all that? So this starts our main character trying to deal with the fact that someone is clearly trying to blackmail her, bring her down. But also she wants to be prideful in who she is as a person. She cannot help that she has HIV, and she's controlling her HIV, and she's doing everything that she's supposed to do. And this is not something that should deter her life. And she wants to be with this boy, and why can't she be with this boy even though she is HIV positive? Once again, a young adult book that has something to say. This is why I say you guys should not be afraid of young adult. So many young adult books are so inspired these days, and that is this book. This book is for all of the kids who are living with HIV and all of the kids who don't want one thing to define their entire life, because it does not have to be. This book also taught me a lot of things. You're never too smart to learn a thing or two. There were things about HIV that I simply did not know. There were things about people who are living with HIV that I did not know, and this book taught me that. And for a young adult book to do that, like, wow. And also, once again, a cute love story. A cute love story, and this book is also about acceptance. Every lid has a pot. Every lid has a pot. And what these young adult books that I read this year showed that like everybody don't gotta like you. Everybody gotta like you. Ain't gotta like it because the hood gonna love it. Like somebody is going to find you and think that you are amazing, and that's who you should be spending your time trying to gravitate towards. I thought this book was brilliant. 5 out of 5 stars. A book that I read at the beginning of the year that just has stuck with me. I cried reading this book. I loved it so much. If you watched my channel this year, you know what these last 2 books are because I have not been able to shut up about them. I truly think maybe the reason why I didn't have many standout books this year is because I haven't been able to get these 2 books off of my mind. But let's get on into it. My number 2 favorite book of the year goes to The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. This is a book that I picked up and I was just like, why did I pick this book up? Because God had my back. God knew, Kenya, you have to read this book. So we are back in Florence in the 1500s. And we start with the prologue that basically says, hey, I'm with my husband right now and he's trying to kill me. What the hell is going on? So then we go back in time. We go back in time and try to figure out why this girl is about to be killed by her husband. What's going on? So we find out that this girl is a part of a very rich family. And in order to keep her family rich, to keep their lineage going, to build alliances with other people, she is going to be married off to this man. But this man may not have the purest of intentions because he was going to marry her sister, but her sister unfortunately died. And so she's stepping in. She's stepping in and she's going to marry this man. But the thing is, she is very, very young. Like her sister was a few years older than her and she was only like 16. So imagine how young this girl is. And so when she gets to know this man, everything starts off all well and good. But quickly she realizes this man might not have the purest intentions and my life might be in danger. So you have the story that I just told you, the summary. This is the plot of the story. But on top of this is about a girl who is trying to find her identity and a girl who is deciding to pick what her future is going to be and not just be what everyone wants her to be. The reason why she is in this situation is because everyone thinks that she is like the fuck up of the family. She is the wild, crazy person of the family. And a lot of times in books, you can have that wild, crazy person. It's just like someone's going to love you. You're a little out of there, but someone's going to love you. But that's not the message of this book, trying to find somebody to love you. The message of this book is being whoever you want to be and just being comfortable with that. And this book is so lively. This book is so lively. There's so much imagery that you just see it. There's this thing with this tiger and it's so good. I just want you to read it. I just want you to read it. I need another copy of this book, not because I'm a shopaholic, but because I don't like this version of this book. So I got this book from Waterstone. And if you ever bought a book from Waterstone, you know that like they don't bind their books the best. They don't bind their books there. So my spine is completely broken. I think I'm going to go ahead and get this book in hardcover, but I enjoyed the hell out of this book. It is so good. Do not be intimidated by this book because this book is long. It is just good. It's amazing. And I want you to physically read it. All of these books I physically read. I want you to physically read these books so you can like really get, if you can, so you can really get the effect that these books want you to have. It's so good. It's so good. My number 1 favorite book of the year. Every year is not made the same. Sometimes I have a number 1 favorite book of the year and it's like, this was my number 1 favorite book of the year, but like, I don't know if this would go in like the best books of all time, like best books I've ever read. Will it go in there? I don't know. This is not one of those years. The book I am about to show you is one of my favorite books of all time. When I think about this book, not to be too earnest because I hate being earnest on the internet, not to be that, but like, this is why I read books. This book is why I read books. And yes, I read 200 books this year and most of them were not my favorite books of all time. But like, this book made all 199 worth it. Like, I adore this book. Everything about this book. And that is Paul Murray's The Bee Sting. Don't be intimidated by how long this book is. You will want more by the time that you get to the end. This book is so clever and so smart and so well done, so inspired, so intentional, and I loved every single moment of it. So to put it simply, in this book, you are following an Irish family who are on the verge of financial ruin. They put all their money in this car dealership, and this car dealership is going under. The Irish government isn't doing well, and basically they are about to lose everything. And we are going to go through 4 members of this family and figure out how everybody got to this situation. How is everyone dealing with this situation? You have a husband, you have a mother, you have a young son, and you have a college-age daughter. This book is a book about perspective. It is about communication. It is about talking to people. That is, I think, the brilliant thing about this book. This book is talking about how a lot of issues can be solved if everyone just talked to each other, if everyone just had a conversation and said how they feel about what's going on. But also, when I say this book is inspired, I say that because this book is also an allegory for climate change. The real message of this book is about climate change and how we are ruining the earth, but like we could all come together and fix it. I know that sounds crazy to have this family drama and then at the root of it is a conversation about climate change, but once you read it, it all comes together. This book is so good. Everyone should read this book. I see this book on people's bookshelves and I'm like, you don't even realize the best book on your bookshelf is the one you're just letting sit there and collect dust. I remember getting this book in the mail, and I did not expect this book to be so big. And I was just like, I'll read it one day, child. Baby, I'm so glad I read this book. And this book kind of made me get over my fear of big books. I'm not scared of big books anymore because if they're doing this, if they are doing this, it's all worth it. So this is my #1 favorite book of the year, Paul Murray, The Bee Sting. You ever read a book and it's like, I need to talk to the author. I said this in my reading vlog of this. I want to talk to Paul Murray about the last 50 pages of this book. We have to talk. Like, I don't know what to tell you. What heartbreak feels good in a place like this? Like, ugh, it's so good. Anyways, those are my favorite books of the year. Thank you guys so much for spending the year with me on this journey of finding my favorite books. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one.